6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Malavarachi and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The Finance Minister says, ahead of the IMF discussions, reforms are crucial but can't ignore the poor. Legal experts say that a struggle without leadership is of no avail. The gas production will commence on Monday. Fuel supply would be returned to normalcy by Monday. The Buck full moon poi day falls today. International news, Russia threatens to step up attacks on Kyiv. Sports cricket, Joe Root steps down as England captain following West Indies defeat. News in detail. The Finance Minister Ali Sabri says Sri Lanka's economic recovery will depend on reforms undertaken with the IMF support, but the government will not ignore the country's poor. The recently appointed minister spoke to The Hindu ahead of his departure to Washington, D.C., where he will lead the Sri Lankan delegation in negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. Legal experts say that a struggle without leadership is of no avail. President's Counsel U.R. De Silva says that a political struggle that specially intends to topple the government should have a strong leadership. A group of youth have started an ad hoc protest campaign at the Golface Green, demanding the president and the government to step down. He said, however, it cannot be done through such struggles unless a proper constitutional process is followed. He added that at this juncture, there is no possibility of ousting the government or the president. People have to express their dislike to the ruling party in a proper election held according to the provisions of the Constitution. Former Minister Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa says that the President is carrying his duties without any hindrance. The Parliament group and the Cabinet are supporting him to rule the country properly. The government is now taking effective measures to overcome the prevailing dire situation in the country. He told the foreign media that the President and the government should have been more open and vocal about the plans for the country. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. According to Litrogas, a gas stock of 8,500 metric tons is expected in the island soon. This is for the provisions of foreign exchange through the World Bank and the IMF with the intervention of the government. The company states that $10 million have been received so far for this purpose. Meanwhile, production will resume on Monday, the 18th of April. It is also reported that 11,000 metric tons of gas have been distributed in April so far. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation CPC has requested all owners of petroleum bowsers to send their vehicles to relevant terminals and depots as soon as possible. CPC Chairman Sumit Vijayasinghe said this is to streamline the distribution process as adequate stocks of fuel are available. He expressed confidence that the fuel supply would be returned to normalcy by Monday. Further, he said that dispensing fuel for vehicles at filling stations is limited with effect from last evening to prevent people unnecessarily stocking fuel, which leads to an artificial shortage. Thereby, dispensing fuel at Sipetco filling stations is limited to motorcycles, three-wheelers, cars, vans and jeeps. However, this does not apply to buses, lorries and commercial vehicles. The Commissioner General of Registration of Persons, Vianney Gunatilaka, has told the provincial directors of education countrywide that almost 70% of students in government schools who are to sit for the GCE O-level examination in May this year have not applied for their NICs as yet. Since the examinations department has decided to ask the candidate of this examination to produce their NICs at the examination centres as a compulsory requirement to prevent possible frauds and malpractices, the students would perhaps undergo much inconvenience when they sit the examination if school heads fail to get the NICs for school candidates. There is only a month left for them to get their NICs before the examination. Around 5,000 application forms have been returned to school heads as they had been filled erroneously. About 400,000 students generally get their NICs annually for this public examination. Chairman Kingsley Ranocka said the SLTB will deploy buses for people who travel to their native areas to return back. He said 1,500 buses are in operation daily, while 600 additional SLTB buses will be deployed for the public to return to Colombo from their hometowns. Ranocka added that depots have been informed to pay special attention to meeting the demand of commuters. And that ends local news for now. And we move on to the main news story. The Buck Full Moon Poya Day falls today. This Poya commemorates the second visit of the Buddha to Sri Lanka. The Buddha, in the 5th year of his supreme enlightenment, returned to Sri Lanka on a Buck Pura Paslosa Poya Day. According to the Mahavansa that relates to the history of Sri Lanka, the Buddha visited Nagadipa as he wanted to put an end to the feud between two groups belonging to the Naga community and bring peace to the land. King Mahodra and his nephew Chulodra, both from Naga tribe, were quarrelling over a gem-studded throne, Mani Palanka, which had been given to Chulodra's mother by her father. The Buddha intervened as the rivals were about to meet in battle. He managed to settle the dispute and create unity through preaching the Dhamma sermons. Religious observances are being carried out in Buddhist temples and centres island-wide to mark this Poya. Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation is also airing many programs on this day. That was the main news story, and we move on to Watchlight. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka PUCSL says the duration of power cuts today and tomorrow will be limited to 2 hours and 15 minutes. According to the schedule published by the PUCSL, nighttime interruptions to the electricity supply will not be experienced on these 2 days. That was Watchlight. And coming up next is World News.
World News, brought to you by courtesy of...
No matter what anyone says, for your lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, Friendly Leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
The headlines: Russia threatens to step up attacks on Kyiv. Clashes in Shanghai over COVID lockdown evictions. UNICEF says COVID closures will still affecting 400 million pupils. World News in detail. Moscow says it will respond to any Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory by striking Kyiv with more missiles. The number and scale of attacks will go up if its own settlements become targets, the ministry said. The warning came as Russia announced a missile strike on a military factory near Kyiv, which it claimed was in response to a Ukrainian helicopter attack on a Russian village. Ukraine denies it carried out the attack. Video has emerged of clashes between police and people being forced out of their homes in Shanghai as the city enters a third week of COVID lockdown. Some residential compounds are being turned into quarantine centers. Millions are confined to their homes as Shanghai battles a fresh outbreak of the virus. Anyone who tests positive is placed in quarantine. But with more than 20,000 new cases a day, authorities are struggling to find enough space. The United Nations Children's Fund says schools in 23 countries with 405 million pupils are still partially or fully closed because of COVID. The charity UNICEF estimates 147 million children have missed at least half of their in-person schooling. Some vulnerable children, especially girls, have not returned to those schools that have been reopened. UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell says children are the hidden casualties of the pandemic. Back to the headlines of the world news. Russia threatens to step up attacks on Kyiv. Clashes in Shanghai over COVID lockdown evictions. UNICEF says COVID closures still affecting 400 million pupils. And that ends World News.
World News, brought to you by courtesy of...
For your wheel lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, friendly leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Development News is brought to you by Let's take all out of the coconut tree and make the island thriving and prosperous. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928.
The Sri Lanka Association for Software and Services Companies recently signed MOUs with Sabragamua, Wayamba, Eastern and Central startup hubs covering 4 provinces. The main intention of this move was to extend opportunities to regional entrepreneurial startups and SMEs in capacity and skills building, technology diffusion and gender-specific initiatives that in turn will give rise to IT and BPM companies and tech startups across the country. And that was Development News.
Development News was brought to you by the coconut tree is well grown in almost all the parts of the island. It is an exceptional source of extra income. The shell, the husk and almost all the parts of the coconut tree makes you money, providing you with an excellent extra source of income. It will also help to nourish the economy of the country. You will be guided with all necessary informations regarding the coconut cultivation, with the novel cultivation techniques and all other related and upgraded informations by the Coconut Research Institute, Lunavilla. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928. Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Sports news. Cricket. Joe Root has stepped down as England Test captain, citing the toll and impact the role has had on him. The 31-year-old was appointed Sir Alistair Cook's successor in 2017 and holds the record for the highest number of matches and wins as captain. But his last series as skipper ended in defeat by West Indies, the 10-wicket third Test loss, stretching England's winless run to 9 matches. Root initially said he wanted to stay, but now says the timing is right. And that was Sports News.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Sri Lanka Institute of Directors launched its Family Business Forum recently via the virtual platform aimed at inculcating sound board leadership and good governance practices in family-owned businesses. Chairman of the Institute, Faisal Saleh, said they recognize the presence, growth and importance of family business in the economy of the country. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
In economic news, the Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said Sri Lanka may qualify for a 400% of quota extended fund facility from the International Monetary Fund. Through the exact program size will have to decided once the financial gap is assessed. Governor Veerasinghe said it's too early to say in response to a question whether Sri Lanka could qualify for 535% of quota exceptional access at peak program from the IMF. And that was economic news. And on to the weather report. The Department of Meteorology says thunder showers accompanied by severe lightning are expected in parts of the northern, north central, eastern, central and Ua provinces. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters can be expected at some places in these areas. There may be temporary localized strong winds during thunder showers. The general public is advised to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by lightning activity. That was the weather report, and to end this news broadcast, a reminder of the headlines. The finance minister says, ahead of the IMF discussions, reforms are crucial but can't ignore the poor. Legal experts say that a struggle without leadership is of no avail. The gas production will commence on Monday. Fuel supply would be returned to normalcy by Monday. The Buck Full Moon Poi Day falls today. International news, Russia threatens to step up attacks on Kiev. Sports cricket, Joe Root steps down as England Test captain following West Indies defeat. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.